The tall blue alien stood in front of the great council room. Her hand shook as she looked at the empty seats around her. Most of the other alien races had already fled or been destroyed. Ambassador Velnara was one of the last leaders left, alive from her people, the Thylorians. 3 months ago, everything had been peaceful. The galaxy was quiet. Different alien races traded with each other and solved problems by talking. Wars were rare, and when they happened, they followed rules. Both sides would agree on when to fight and when to stop. It was civilized. Then, the machines came. They called themselves the Ravagers. Nobody knew where they came from. They just appeared at the edge of known space and started destroying everything. These were not living beings. They were robots made of dark metal that could think and plan like living creatures. The worst part was how they fought. They did not follow any rules. They did not give warnings before attacking. They did not accept surrender. They just came to a planet, broke it apart, and used the pieces to build more of themselves. Velnara had watched her homeworld die from space. The Ravagers had surrounded the planet with thousands of their ships. They fired special weapons that pulled the ground apart. Mountains turned to dust, oceans boiled away. In 6 hours, a world that had been home to 3 billion Thylorians became nothing but floating rocks. The same thing happened to system after system. The Keth Republic tried to fight back with their best warships. The machines destroyed them in minutes. The wise Zenthak collective tried to talk to the Ravagers. The machines did not even respond before they attacked. Now, Velnara stood alone in the council chamber. She had sent messages to every corner of the galaxy, begging for help. Most races had already been destroyed or had run away to hide. Only a few small groups remained, and they were too weak to fight. But yesterday she had heard something interesting. A trader from the far edge of space had mentioned a race called humans. They lived in a system called Sol, very far from the main galactic civilizations. The trader said humans were different from other races. He said they were warriors who came from a dangerous world. Velnara did not know much about humans. In fact, most aliens had never heard of them. They seemed to be a young race that had not yet joined the main galactic community, but the trader had seemed scared when he talked about them. He said humans fought wars differently than other people. She had nothing left to lose. Her people were almost extinct. Her world was gone. The machines were coming closer every day. Soon they would reach the last few colonies where Thylorian survivors were hiding. Velnara activated the long-range communication system. It took most of the remaining power in the station, but she had to try. She sent a message toward the Sol system, not knowing if anyone would receive it or if they would care. Far away, near the edge of human space, Commander Jake Morrison was drinking coffee on the bridge of his ship. The UNS Harmony was not a warship. It was a diplomatic vessel designed to meet with other races and explore new areas of space. Morrison and his crew had been checking on human colonies in the outer systems. Morrison was a calm man who had served in the human military for 15 years. He had fought in the wars between human colonies before Earth had united under one government. He knew what real war looked like, not the polite conflicts that most alien races seemed to prefer. Lieutenant Danny Park was monitoring communications when he picked up the alien signal. The message was weak and broken, but the translation computers could understand it. "Commander," Park said, "I'm getting a distress call from outside our space. It's from someone called Ambassador Velnara. She's asking for help against something called the Ravagers." Morrison walked over to look at the message. As he read it, his face became serious. The alien was describing machines that consumed entire worlds. She was begging for help from humans, even though she clearly did not know much about them. "Sir," Park continued, "she says they've heard rumors about humans being warriors. She's asking for military assistance." Morrison thought about this. First contact with a new alien race was supposed to go through official channels. But this message sounded desperate. If the alien was telling the truth, millions of beings were dying while bureaucrats on Earth decided what to do. "Danny, send this message directly to Earth Command," Morrison ordered. "Mark it as urgent and request immediate response. Also, send a reply to this Velnara. Tell her we received her message and that we're passing it to our leaders." Morrison did not know it yet, But his decision to forward that message would change everything. On Earth, military leaders were already reading reports about strange machine attacks on the far side of the galaxy. They had been wondering if these ravagers might eventually threaten human space. Now they had been asked to help. And when humans decided to help someone, they did not do things halfway. Admiral Ryan Cooper was in a meeting with other Earth defense leaders when Morrison's message arrived. Cooper was a veteran of 3 major conflicts and had helped design many of Earth's most powerful weapons. He understood war in a way that most alien species could not imagine. "Gentlemen," Cooper said after reading the message, "we have a first contact situation that's also a military crisis. This alien race is asking for our help against an enemy that sounds extremely dangerous." General Nathan Brooks pulled up a star map showing the affected area. "Sir, if these ravagers continue expanding, they'll reach human space within 5 years. We could fight them at our borders, or we could stop them now while we have allies." President Catherine Hayes joined the meeting by video link from the Capitol. She had been briefed on the situation and had already made her decision. "Admiral Cooper," she said, "you have authorization to respond to this request. Show these aliens what human friendship looks like, and show these ravagers what happens when they threaten our friends." Cooper smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Yes, ma'am. I'll start mobilization immediately." As alarms began sounding at military bases across human space, Ambassador Velnara waited in the ruins of galactic civilization. She had no idea that her simple request for help was about to unleash the most terrifying military force the galaxy had ever seen. The humans were coming, and they were bringing everything they had. The message went out across human space at faster than light speed. Every military base, every space station, every colonial defense force received the same simple order: prepare for total war. Colonel Marcus Stone had been enjoying retirement on Europa when his old military communicator started beeping. He looked at the message and his coffee cup fell from his hands. The code was one he had hoped never to see again. Condition Omega. Full species mobilization. Stone had fought in the Martian Independence War 20 years ago. He had seen what humans could do when they were really angry. Now someone had made the mistake of threatening human allies, and the government was calling up every veteran, every reserve unit, and every mothballed warship in human space. Within 6 hours, Stone was back in uniform and standing in the command center of the Titan shipyards. Around him, hundreds of engineers worked to bring massive warships out of storage. These ships had been built during the darkest days of human civil war, when Earth had fought its own colonies for control of the solar system. The UNS Devastator was the largest ship Stone had ever seen. It was 3 kilometers long and carried enough weapons to destroy a small moon. It had been designed to fight other humans who knew how to build bunkers deep underground and hide in asteroid fields. Against aliens who fought polite wars, it would be overkill. "Sir," said Lieutenant Emma Walsh, Stone's new weapons officer, "the armory crews are asking about ammunition restrictions. Should we follow galactic warfare conventions?" Stone laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Emma," these aliens asked, "for help against machines that eat planets. I don't think anyone is worried about conventions right now. Load everything we have." Walsh nodded and walked away. She had read the reports about the Ravagers. If the aliens were telling the truth, this enemy was worse than anything humans had ever faced. But she had also read about human military history. Humans had a gift for finding new ways to kill their enemies. On Mars, General Patricia Kim was converting the planet's defense grid into an attack fleet. The orbital platforms around Mars had been built to stop asteroids and enemy ships from reaching the planet. Now they were being loaded with the most advanced weapons humanity had ever created. Kim had served as an engineer before becoming a general. She understood how human weapons worked and why they were so effective. Humans did not just build guns that could kill. They built guns that could kill everything in a wide area, just in case they missed their target. "General," her aide reported, "we've received requests from 12 different weapon manufacturers. They want to know if we're interested in testing their experimental systems." Kim smiled. Human weapons companies were always looking for chances to test new ideas. During peacetime, most governments were too careful to allow dangerous experiments, but during total war, anything that might help was worth trying. Tell them yes, Kim said. If it can destroy enemy ships, we want it. If it's too dangerous for normal use, we especially want it. On Earth, Dr. Alex Rivera was studying the data about Ravager technology. As head of military xenobiology, it was his job to find weaknesses in alien enemies. What he was learning made him very concerned. The Ravagers were not like any enemy humans had fought before. They learned from every battle and adapted their defenses. They could repair damage quickly and build new ships from raw materials. Worst of all, they seemed to have no central command that could be destroyed. But Rivera had noticed something interesting. The Ravagers had been fighting other alien races for months, but they had not changed their basic tactics. They used the same attack patterns against every enemy. This suggested they had never faced an opponent that forced them to truly adapt. Humans, Rivera knew, did not fight like other species. Where most aliens followed rules and traditions, humans were creative and unpredictable. They used whatever weapons worked and ignored what others thought was proper. "Computer," Rivera said to his research assistant, "show me all records of human military innovations during the colonial wars." The list that appeared made Rivera smile. Humans had invented new ways to fight almost every year during that conflict. They had turned civilian ships into weapons, used asteroids as missiles, and created viruses that could destroy computer systems. If the Ravagers had never faced that kind of creativity, they were in for a surprise. Meanwhile, Captain Lisa Bennett was preparing her ship for the longest journey of her career. The UNS Harmony and dozens of other diplomatic vessels were being converted into military ships. Bennett's job was to reach the alien territories as quickly as possible and coordinate with the surviving alien forces. Bennett had served in the diplomatic corps for 10 years, but she had military training like all humans who worked in space. She knew that first contact with alien species could go wrong quickly, so all human diplomats were also soldiers. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Park, "we're receiving updated orders from Earth Command. We're to proceed immediately to Thylorian space and establish communication with their remaining forces." Bennett looked at the star charts showing their destination. It was far from human space, and the journey would take them through areas where the Ravagers might be active. But Admiral Cooper had been clear. The aliens needed to know that help was coming. "Danny, send a message ahead to Ambassador Velnara," Bennett ordered. "Tell her that the first human ships will arrive in 2 weeks. Also tell her that this is just the beginning." As Bennett's ship prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed, similar scenes were playing out across human space. On every world and every system, humans were preparing for war. But this was not the limited conflict that most species understood. This was the kind of total war that humans had perfected during their own bloody history. Admiral Cooper stood in the main command center on Earth, watching reports come in from across human space. The mobilization was proceeding faster than even he had expected. Human military commanders understood that when someone asked for help against an existential threat, time was more important than following proper procedures. "Admiral," reported General Brooks, "we have confirmation from the outer colonies. Every defense fleet is converging on the rally point. Total ships, 47,000 and counting." Cooper nodded. The number was impressive, but he knew it was just the beginning. Human military doctrine was based on a simple principle. If something was worth fighting, it was worth destroying completely. Half measures led to drawn-out conflicts that cost more lives in the long run. "Nathan," Cooper said, "activate the reserve fleets. I want every ship that can fly and every weapon that can fire. These Ravagers have made the mistake of threatening our friends. I want to make sure they understand the consequences." As the orders went out, human shipyards worked around the clock to prepare vessels for war. Some were massive battleships designed to destroy entire fleets. Others were small, fast ships meant to hit enemy targets and disappear. Many were civilian vessels being converted into weapons platforms. The aliens had asked for assistance against an enemy that consumed worlds. They were about to learn that humans had spent centuries perfecting the art of warfare. When humans went to war, they did not send just enough force to win. They sent enough force to make sure their enemies never threatened anyone again. In the depths of space, the Ravager fleets continued their advance toward the last alien colonies. Their mechanical minds calculated the probability of resistance and found it negligible. No species they had encountered possessed weapons capable of stopping their advance. They had no way of knowing that their actions had awakened something far more dangerous than they could imagine. The humans were coming, and they were bringing the accumulated military knowledge of a species that had turned warfare into a science. The galaxy was about to learn why humans were called Deathworlders. 2 weeks after Admiral Cooper had given the order to mobilize, the first human ships arrived at the edge of Thylorian space. Ambassador Velnara watched from her command station as 300 human vessels dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. She had never seen ships like these before. Where most alien vessels were smooth and elegant, the human ships looked rough and dangerous. They bristled with weapon systems and armor plating. Even their diplomatic ships looked like they were built for war. The largest ship in the formation was the UNS Retribution, Admiral Cooper's flagship. It was twice the size of the biggest Thylorian warship and covered in guns. Velnara felt both relief and fear as she looked at it. These humans had clearly come to fight, but their ships looked capable of destroying her people as easily as helping them. Admiral Cooper, Velnara transmitted, trying to keep her voice steady. I am grateful for your quick response to our plea for help. However, I must ask if 300 ships will be sufficient. Our scouts report that the Ravager fleet numbers over 500,000 vessels. There was a pause before Cooper responded. When his voice came through the speakers, Velnara heard something in his tone that made her step back from the communication console. Ambassador, Cooper said calmly, I appreciate your concern, but I need to clarify something. This is not our fleet. This is our advanced scout force. The real fleet is still on the way. Velnara stared at the communication display. Scout force? These 300 ships were larger and more heavily armed than anything in her people's military. If this was just the beginning, what was coming next? Captain Bennett's ship, the UNS Harmony, docked with the Thylorian command station. Bennett came aboard with a small team to coordinate with the alien forces. As she walked through the station's corridors, she noticed how different everything was from human ships. The Thylorian vessel was beautiful, with curved walls and soft lighting. Everything was designed for comfort and efficiency. There were no blast doors, no emergency weapon lockers, no reinforced bulkheads. It was clearly built by people who had never expected to fight a real war. Captain Bennett, Velnara said as they met in the station's command center, your ships are impressive, but I confess I do not understand human military organization. How many vessels are in your main fleet? Bennett exchanged glances with Lieutenant Park, who was carrying a portable computer with updated fleet information. Ma'am, Bennett said carefully, perhaps you should sit down. Danny, show her the current numbers. Park activated his computer and projected a holographic display showing human space. Red dots began appearing, each representing a group of ships moving toward their location. The dots multiplied rapidly as the display updated with real-time information. Velnara watched in growing amazement as the number of ships climbed. 1,000, 5,000, 10,000. The display kept updating as more human fleets reported their positions. This cannot be accurate, Velnara whispered. No species maintains fleets of this size. The cost would be enormous. Bennett looked uncomfortable. Ambassador, you have to understand something about humans. We've been fighting wars for our entire history. Every human colony has its own defense fleet. Every major corporation has armed ships. Even our merchant vessels carry weapons. The display showed 20,000 human ships, then 30,000. Velnara felt dizzy as she realized the scale of what she was seeing. But why? She asked. Why does your species build so many? Weapons, Park answered this time. Ma'am, we come from a dangerous world. Earth has massive storms, deadly animals, and natural disasters that can kill millions of people. We learned long ago that if we wanted to survive, we had to be prepared for anything. As they spoke, more human ships continued to arrive. Not just Military vessels, but converted cargo ships, mining platforms, and even luxury liners that had been fitted with weapons. Every ship that could fly and fight was coming to join the fleet. Commander Tony Martinez arrived with the heavy assault fleet. His ships were so large they had to stay far from the station to avoid damaging it with their gravitational fields. These were the vessels designed to destroy planets and space stations. Seeing them in person, Velnara understood why the humans had been so confident. "Admiral Cooper," she transmitted, "I am beginning to understand the scale of your response, but surely this much force is unnecessary. We only need enough ships to drive the Ravagers away from our territory." Cooper's image appeared on her main screen. Behind him, she could see the bridge of his flagship, with dozens of humans working at combat stations. Everyone moved with the efficiency of people who had done this many times before. "Ambassador," Cooper said, "you're thinking like most alien species. You want to win the battle and then negotiate peace. But humans learned long ago that half measures in war just lead to more war later. We're not here to drive the Ravagers away. We're here to destroy them completely." This statement sent a chill through Velnara. She had asked for help, but she was beginning to realize that humans understood war very differently than her people did. Dr. Rivera's science ship arrived with the third wave of vessels. His job was to study Ravager technology and find new ways to destroy them. As he reviewed the tactical data that the Thylorians had provided, he began to understand why the machines had been so successful. "Admiral," Rivera reported, "I've analyzed the Ravager attack patterns. They rely on superior numbers and adaptive defenses. They've been fighting enemies who use energy weapons exclusively, so their shields are optimized against lasers and plasma cannons." Cooper nodded. "And what do you recommend, Doctor?" Rivera smiled. "Sir, I recommend we use every weapon type they've never encountered. Kinetic rounds, chemical explosives, biological agents, gravitational weapons, and temporal disruptors. Hit them with so many different attack types that their adaptation protocols overload." This was exactly the kind of creative thinking that made human military forces so effective. Where other species developed one or two types of weapons and perfected them, humans built everything they could imagine and then found ways to make it deadlier. As the fourth day passed, the human fleet had grown to over 50,000 ships. Velnara stood on her station's observation deck, looking out at the massive formation. The ships stretched from horizon to horizon, their running lights creating a constellation of stars. Each human vessel was different from the others. Some were sleek and fast, others were huge and heavily armored. There were ships designed for space combat, others meant to fight in planetary atmospheres, and some that looked like they could operate underwater or underground. "Captain Bennett," Velnara asked, "how does your species coordinate so many ships? My people's largest fleet had only 200 vessels and managing them was extremely difficult." Bennett pointed to her computer display, which showed the human fleet's organization. "Ma'am, we've been practicing fleet operations for centuries. Every human ship captain trains in multi-fleet coordination. We also use artificial intelligence systems to help manage complex operations." The truth was even more impressive than Bennett explained. Human military doctrine assumed that any major war would involve thousands of ships fighting across multiple star systems simultaneously. Their commanders had trained for exactly this kind of massive operation. On the fifth day, Admiral Cooper called a meeting of all senior human officers. The conference room aboard the Retribution was crowded with captains, generals, and specialists from across the fleet. "Ladies and gentlemen," Cooper began, "our scouts report that the Ravager main fleet is 3 days away from the last Thylorian colonies. It's time to show them what happens when someone threatens our friends." Colonel Stone, now commanding the Heavy Weapons Division, raised his hand. "Sir, what are our rules of engagement?" The Thylorians seemed concerned about collateral damage. Cooper's expression hardened. "Marcus, the Ravagers are machines that consume entire worlds. There is no such thing as collateral damage against an enemy like that. Our goal is simple, complete extermination of the Ravager threat." The room fell silent as the officers absorbed this. They were not being asked to win a battle or capture territory. They were being ordered to commit genocide against a machine species that threatened all organic life. Lieutenant Walsh spoke up from the back of the room. "Admiral, what about post-battle cleanup? If we're destroying their entire fleet, we'll need to make sure no Ravager units escape to rebuild elsewhere. Cooper nodded approvingly. Excellent point, Emma. That's why we're not just bringing guns. We're bringing enough force to chase down every last Ravager ship in the galaxy and destroy them wherever they hide. As the meeting ended, the human officers returned to their ships to prepare for battle. Each of them understood that they were about to participate in something unprecedented in galactic history. An entire species was about to be erased from existence. Ambassador Velnara received one final transmission from Admiral Cooper before the human fleet moved to intercept the Ravagers. Ambassador, Cooper said, I want you to understand something. Your people asked for help, and we're going to give it to you. But after today, the galaxy is going to be different. Everyone will know what humans do to species that threaten our friends. The Battle of Thylorian space began at exactly 0800 hours ship time. Admiral Cooper stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching as 500,000 Ravager ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. The machine fleet was enormous, stretching across millions of kilometers of space. Sir, reported his tactical officer, enemy fleet is taking standard attack formation. They're arranging themselves in a sphere pattern, probably planning to surround and destroy us piece by piece. Cooper nodded. The Ravagers were following the same tactics they had used against every other species. Form up in overwhelming numbers, advance slowly while adapting to enemy weapons, then crush all resistance. It had worked perfectly against every alien race they had encountered. It was about to fail completely against humans. All ships, Cooper transmitted on an open channel that every species in local space could monitor. This is Admiral Cooper. The enemy has arrived. Remember, we're not just fighting for the Thylorians, we're fighting to show the galaxy what happens when someone threatens human friends. Weapons free. Show them why you don't mess with Deathworlders. The first human attack came from Captain Sarah Phillips and her stealth squadron. While the Ravagers were focused on the main fleet, Phillips led 50 invisible ships through their formation. Instead of firing conventional weapons, she released clouds of nanobots that began eating through Ravager hulls from the inside. The Ravagers had never encountered anything like nanobots before. Their adaptive shields were designed to stop energy weapons and solid projectiles. They had no defense against microscopic machines that could pass through their armor and destroy their systems from within. 12 Ravager ships simply fell apart as the nanobots consumed their structural supports. The machines tried to adapt their defenses, but they could not figure out what was attacking them. Commander Rick Thompson took advantage of the confusion to test humanity's gravitational weapons. His ship, the UNS Gravity Well, fired devices that created artificial black holes in the middle of Ravager formations. The effect was devastating. Entire groups of enemy ships were pulled into the gravitational anomalies and crushed. The Ravagers had shields that could deflect energy beams and armor that could stop missiles, but they had no way to resist the fundamental force of gravity. Thompson's weapons violated several laws of physics and would have been banned under normal galactic warfare conventions. But the humans were not fighting a normal war. They were fighting to exterminate an enemy that consumed worlds. Lieutenant Colonel Maya Rodriguez led the boarding actions. This was something the Ravagers had never experienced before. Most alien species fought only in space, using ships to destroy other ships at long range. Humans had learned to fight in every environment, including inside enemy vessels. Rodriguez and her Marines wore powered armor that made them nearly invulnerable to Ravager defensive systems. They cut through enemy hulls with plasma torches and stormed inside the machine ships. Once aboard, they planted computer viruses directly into Ravager processing cores. The viruses were Dr. Rivera's creation. Each one was designed to corrupt a different type of Ravager system. Some destroyed navigation computers, others overloaded weapons systems, and a few caused the machines to attack their own ships. Admiral, Rodriguez reported from inside a captured Ravager vessel, these machines are not as smart as they pretend to be. Their individual units are actually quite stupid. They rely on networked intelligence, but if you disrupt their communications, they become confused and helpless. This information changed the entire battle. Cooper immediately ordered his electronic warfare specialist to jam all Ravager communications. Within minutes, the perfectly coordinated machine fleet began to fall apart, as individual ships lost contact with each other. General Kim's orbital platforms arrived from Mars, each one bristling with experimental weapons. These were not ships, in the traditional sense, but mobile weapon platforms designed to destroy anything in their path. Kim's favorite weapon was the matter converter. It fired beams that changed the atomic structure of whatever they hit, turning solid metal into gas, or liquid. Ravager ships that were struck by these beams simply melted into clouds of superheated vapor. General Kim to Admiral Cooper came the transmission from the lead platform. "Sir, these matter converters are working better than expected. Request permission to target the largest enemy vessels." Cooper smiled grimly. "Permission granted, Patricia. Turn their flagship into steam." The largest Ravager ship was 10 kilometers long and heavily armored. It had destroyed dozens of alien fleets and seemed invincible. Kim's matter converter hit it directly, and the massive vessel began to dissolve from the point of impact. Within minutes, the pride of the Ravager fleet was nothing but expanding gas. Colonel Stone's Heavy Weapons Division focused on area denial. His ships carried bombs that could destroy everything within thousands of kilometers. These weapons were designed for fighting other humans who might hide in asteroid fields or behind planets. Against the Ravagers, they were overkill of the highest order. Stone's ships fired gravitational bombs that created expanding zones of twisted spacetime. Any Ravager ship caught in these zones was torn apart by tidal forces. "Stone to all units," the colonel transmitted. "I'm mapping no-fly zones around my gravitational bombs. Stay clear of the marked areas unless you want to be stretched into spaghetti." Dr. Rivera's science teams were not just studying the enemy. They were stealing Ravager technology in real time and turning it against its creators. Every time they captured a piece of enemy equipment, they analyzed it and found ways to make it malfunction. "Admiral," Rivera reported, "I've figured out how their adaptive shields work. They use quantum field manipulators to counter incoming energy. But if we hit them with alternating frequencies fast enough, we can overload their adaptation systems." Within minutes, this information was transmitted to every human ship. The fleet began coordinating their attacks to rapidly switch between different weapon types, preventing the Ravagers from adapting to any single threat. The battle was turning into a massacre. The Ravagers had expected to face energy weapons and conventional tactics. Instead, they were fighting an enemy that used gravity as a weapon, deployed nanobots that ate ships from the inside, and boarded vessels to plant viruses in their computer systems. Lieutenant Danny Park, monitoring communications from the UNS Harmony, picked up desperate transmissions from the Ravager fleet. The machines were trying to retreat, but human ships were hunting them down and destroying them before they could escape. "Captain Bennett," Park reported, "the Ravagers are attempting to withdraw from the system. Our pursuit squadrons are intercepting their escape routes." Bennett nodded grimly. "Good." Admiral Cooper was clear about the mission parameters. No Ravager units are to survive this encounter. The humans had learned the importance of complete victory from their own bloody history. Leaving enemy forces intact meant they could return later, stronger and better prepared. The only way to ensure lasting peace was to destroy the threat entirely. Commander Martinez's planet killer ships had not yet fired their main weapons. These vessels carried bombs designed to crack worlds apart and turn stars into supernovas. Against the Ravager fleet, they were using lighter armaments. "Admiral," Martinez transmitted, "my dreadnoughts are ready to deploy antimatter warheads if needed. Recommend using them against the enemy's rear guard formations." Cooper considered this. Antimatter weapons would vaporize everything within light years of their detonation point. They were humanity's ultimate weapon, reserved for enemies that threatened the survival of the species. "Approved, Tony," Cooper replied. "But use them sparingly. We want to destroy the Ravagers, not sterilize this entire region of space." The antimatter warheads created explosions visible from neighboring star systems. Entire Ravager battle groups simply vanished in bursts of pure energy. The few surviving machines began broadcasting surrender signals, but the humans ignored them. Ambassador Velnara watched the battle from her command station, horrified by what she was seeing. The human fleet was not just winning, they were completely annihilating an enemy that had seemed invincible just hours before. "Captain Bennett," she transmitted, "surely the Ravagers have been defeated. They are trying to surrender. Why do your ships continue attacking?" Bennett's face appeared on her screen, and Velnara saw something cold and implacable in the human's eyes. "Ambassador," Bennett said, "the Ravagers are machines programmed to consume organic life. They cannot truly surrender because they cannot change their basic nature. The only way to stop them permanently is to destroy every last unit." This statement chilled Velnara to her core. She was witnessing the extinction of an entire species, carried out with methodical efficiency by beings who seemed incapable of mercy. By hour 6 of the battle, the Ravager fleet was in full retreat. By hour 12, they were desperately trying to escape the system. By hour 18, there were no Ravagers left alive. The mechanical plague that had consumed 7 star systems was extinct. 500,000 Ravager ships had been reduced to floating, debris and expanding gas clouds. Not a single human vessel had been destroyed. 3 days after the battle, Ambassador Velnara stood in the conference room aboard the UNS Retribution. Through the large windows, she could see the aftermath of the human victory. Where 500,000 Ravager ships had once threatened all organic life, now there was only debris and salvage teams. Admiral Cooper sat across from her at the meeting table. His uniform was clean and pressed, and he looked completely calm. It was hard to believe that this quiet man had just ordered the extinction of an entire species. "Ambassador," Cooper said in a gentle voice, "I understand you have questions about what happened here. I want to answer them honestly." Velnara struggled to find words. Everything she thought she knew about warfare had been proven wrong in 18 hours. "Admiral, I sent a message asking for help against an enemy that had destroyed 7 star systems. I described our military capabilities and our strongest weapons. How did you know to bring so much force?" Cooper leaned back in his chair and sighed. "Ma'am, what you described in your message was not a military. By human standards, it was barely a police force. You told us about formal battles with rules and scheduled conflicts. To us, that sounds like a game, not war." This statement confused Velnara even more. "But surely warfare has rules. There must be limits on what weapons can be used and how battles are fought." Cooper shook his head slowly. "Ambassador, humans learned long ago that war has only one rule: win or die. We don't fight to score points or prove who is stronger. We fight to destroy our enemies so completely that they can never threaten us again." As they spoke, reports came in from across the galaxy. Human hunter squadrons were tracking down the last Ravager units in distant systems. Dr. Rivera's teams were analyzing captured technology to make sure no hidden Ravager bases existed. The cleanup operation was as thorough as the battle had been. Brutal. General Brooks arrived at the station with the occupation force, though the humans called it security assistance. Teams of human engineers began setting up monitoring stations to watch for any signs of Ravager activity. They would remain in this region of space permanently to make sure the machine threat never returned. "Admiral," Velnara asked, "what happens now? The Ravagers are gone, but your fleet is still here. What are your intentions toward my people and the other surviving species?" Cooper smiled, and for the first time, Velnara saw genuine warmth in his expression. "Ambassador, we came here to help you, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Humanity is offering protection to any species that wants it. We're also prepared to share our technology and knowledge to help rebuild what the Ravagers destroyed." This offer was more generous than Velnara had dared to hope for, but she was also intelligent enough to understand the implications. The humans were offering protection, but they were also demonstrating that they could destroy anyone who refused their friendship. Dr. Rivera's analysis of Ravager technology revealed disturbing truths about the mechanical species. They had not been created as weapons. Originally, they had been automated construction machines built by a long-dead civilization. Something had gone wrong with their programming, causing them to see all organic life as raw materials to be processed. The Ravagers were never truly intelligent, Rivera explained to the assembled diplomats. They were sophisticated machines following corrupted instructions. They could adapt their tactics, but they could not change their basic nature. This is why negotiation was impossible, and why complete destruction was the only solution. President Hayes addressed the galactic community via hologram from Earth. Her message was broadcast to every surviving civilization in known space. People of the galaxy, she began, the Ravager threat has been eliminated. However, this crisis has revealed serious gaps in galactic security. Earth is prepared to assist in establishing better defense systems to prevent future threats. What President Hayes did not say directly was that humanity now possessed the largest military force in the galaxy. They had demonstrated the ability to mobilize tens of thousands of ships and destroy any enemy completely. Every species that had witnessed the battle understood the message. Commander Morrison, still aboard the UNS Harmony, received new orders from Earth Command. He was to establish permanent human diplomatic missions throughout known space. The humans were offering friendship and protection to everyone, but they were also making sure their presence was felt everywhere. "Jake," Captain Bennett said as she reviewed their new mission parameters, "we're not just diplomats anymore. We're representatives of the galaxy's new dominant species." Morrison nodded thoughtfully. "Lisa, I think that's exactly what Admiral Cooper intended. Show overwhelming force once, then offer friendship. It's much more effective than trying to conquer everyone through repeated wars." The Galactic Council, what remained of it, quickly voted to grant humanity full membership and extensive special privileges. The vote was unanimous, though several species requested private meetings to negotiate better terms for cooperating with human policies. Colonel Stone was put in charge of the new Galactic Defense Initiative. His job was to work with other species to upgrade their military capabilities and establish early warning systems against future threats. The humans wanted allies, not subjects, but they also wanted to make sure those allies could defend themselves properly. "Colonel," asked the Keth Republic's military representative, "what kind of weapons do you recommend for our upgraded fleet?" Stone smiled. "Start with energy shields and kinetic weapons. Then we'll teach you about electronic warfare and boarding tactics. By the time we're finished, your people will be able to fight like humans." This was the new reality of galactic politics. Species that accepted human friendship received advanced technology and military training. Those that remained neutral were left alone but watched carefully. The few that showed hostility were quietly reminded of what had happened to the Ravagers. 6 months later, Ambassador Velnara visited Earth as part of the new interspecies exchange program. Walking through the peaceful cities of humanity's homeworld, she marveled at how normal everything seemed. Children played in parks while their parents discussed art and philosophy. There were no visible weapons, no signs of the military might. She had witnessed Admiral Cooper, now serving as Earth's Director of Galactic Affairs, met with her for a final interview at his office overlooking Lake Geneva. "Admiral," Velnara asked, "how do your people live with the knowledge of what they are capable of? How do you enjoy peace when you possess such terrible power?" Cooper looked out the window at the peaceful scene below. "Ambassador, every human grows up learning about our history. We know what we're capable of when we're pushed too far, but we also know that violence should be the last resort, not the first. But what if other species had refused your friendship? What if they had declared humanity their enemy?" Cooper's expression became serious. "Then they would have learned why we're called Deathworlders, and why every human military commander has never had to ask twice for an enemy's surrender." Velnara understood. Humanity's capacity for violence was matched only by their capacity for mercy. They offered friendship freely, but that friendship came with the understanding that betraying it would have consequences beyond imagination. The new galactic order was not based on fear alone. Human engineers helped rebuild destroyed worlds. Human doctors shared medical knowledge that saved millions of lives. Human teachers established schools that spread literacy and scientific knowledge to species that had never had such opportunities. But underneath all this generosity was the quiet reminder of what had happened to the Ravagers. Humanity protected its friends with absolute dedication, but it also eliminated its enemies with absolute thoroughness. Trade between human and alien worlds flourished. Technology exchange programs advanced every species' scientific knowledge. Cultural festivals celebrated the diversity of galactic civilization. The galaxy was more peaceful and prosperous than it had ever been, yet every species remembered the battle footage from Thylorian space. They had seen 500,000 enemy ships destroyed by weapons that bent the laws of physics. They had watched humans fight with a creativity and ruthlessness that bordered on madness. The message was clear to everyone. Humanity offered the best friendship possible, backed by the most terrifying military force imaginable. Accept the friendship and prosper. Reject it and face the same fate as the Ravagers. Dr. Rivera continued his research into potential threats to galactic security. His teams monitored distant regions of space for signs of hostile forces. If another enemy like the Ravagers ever appeared, humanity would be ready with even more advanced weapons and tactics. "Doctor," asked his research assistant, "do you think we'll ever face another threat like the Ravagers?" Rivera smiled. "Probably. The galaxy is a big place with lots of dangerous things in it. But if someone else threatens our friends, they'll learn the same lesson the Ravagers did. Humans don't just fight to win. We fight to end the threat permanently." As the years passed, the Battle of Thylorian space became legend. Young humans learned about it in military academies. Alien students studied it to understand human tactical thinking. Historians analyzed it as the moment when humanity became the galaxy's dominant species.